Hey guys, it's Monica at Academic Phoenix Plus, and welcome to a very special episode because I get to introduce you to Autodesk Maya 2023. That is correct. I get the pleasure of actually playing around with Maya 2023 before it gets released, so I get to show you all the cool new features that are happening in this updated software. If you are new to this channel, I post 3D tutorials on a weekly basis. Software includes Maya, ZBrush, a Substance Painter, and so much more. So if that is your sort of thing, please consider subscribing. So bring out your creativity, open up your software, and let's go ahead and get started with creating cool things in Maya 2023. Just a quick note that this episode is sponsored by Autodesk because they are awesome. So thank you, Autodesk, for sponsoring this episode, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to play with Maya 2023. All right, let's get started. Well, first of all, this is the introduction page to Maya 2023. It's up to you if you want to keep this or not. I usually just go to Maya right here. Nothing's really changed in the UI, which is great. So here we are. Some of the features that I'm going to be talking about include 3D modeling, how fast Maya 2023 is, some of the lighting and shading capacities, and a couple of tips and tricks. So that being said, let's get started with playing around with Maya 2023. So one of the new things that they have is the display of the wireframe. One of the cool things that they have is the ability to take a really high poly object, such as this one, and actually show off the wireframe in a really nice fashion. So for example, if I go over here and click on wireframe on shaded, it's pretty dense and very, very hard to see. So they actually give us the capacity of changing the wireframe so that we can see it a little bit better. Now, if you want to know how dense this is, let's go to display, heads up display, poly count, and you can see that it's about 2 million tries, which isn't that bad, but notice how smooth it is. The fact that actually it moves around really fast, it's wonderful. All right, the second thing we can do is actually go to the shape node of this object and open up object display. And we're going to go to the drawing overrides, and we're going to enable the overrides. And instead of using index, we're going to use RGB, which gives us the capacity of using opacity. So now when I let go, you can see that my wireframe is now black outline. So let's go ahead and grab a color that we want to see it in. And there you go. So that gives us the control of how much of the wireframe we get to see. And therefore we get to have the low poly and the high poly without the huge distraction of a really dense wireframe. So it's up to you how dense you want it to be. But again, that's really helpful if you're trying to see multiple things at once. And yeah, it's great. That's a small thing, but it's still really cool. Another thing that has been improved is manipulating very high dense objects in Maya. So for example, if I grab this and go to vertices and grab it, I can, if you're an old timer like me when it comes to Maya, you already are like, don't move it because that's going to slow down your computer like crazy. And it will still be a little slow, but the reaction time is going to be a lot faster. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it and move it. And you can see that it only took like a second or two to move that piece of geometry. So this is a really nice improvement for Maya 2023. The response time is a lot faster. All right, I've read my armor. Undo, my favorite tool. All right, I'm going to duplicate this piece of armor. Control D, increase my poly count here. The other thing I wanted to show you guys is the ability to reduce the mesh. There is a new tool under mesh called retopology, and you can go to the options. And I'm going to 1,000 polygons is kind of small, so let me go ahead and crank this up to, because I'm going from 2 million to 1,000. That doesn't really make much sense. So let me go ahead and just go to 10,000. I don't need to keep the original because I already made a duplicate of it and everything else looks good. So let's go ahead and apply. Now, this feels like a long time, but actually it's a very efficient. I mean, it's taking over 2 million tries and trying to retopologize and also try to keep the shape of it. So it's actually very efficient, and it's a really neat tool. Because one of the biggest issues that we have in 3D is trying to reduce topology very quickly. So this tool is going to be very helpful in your pipeline. And there you have it. Let's go ahead and assign a Lambert so I can see what it looks like. And there you are. I'm going to change this to like low poly or something like that. And you can always go back in here and you can turn off enable override so it goes back to the default. But there you go. Significantly less than what we have. And it only has about, let's see, 10,000 tries or faces. So that's awesome. And you can see that my original model needs to be worked on a little bit more, but it really significantly reduces the topology, which is great. And of course I can keep going and going until I'm happy with it, or I can manually start removing faces, but it's done some pretty intricate shapes here. That's pretty cool. All right, so that's the new retopology option. Make sure you check it out because it is cool, makes it fast, and now I can start baking. So that's great. All right. Next, I wanted to show you some other cool tools. One of the most exciting updates in Maya 2023 is Boolean options. You'll notice up here at the top, we actually have new Boolean controls. So usually we would go to mesh Booleans and you see that it's highlighted. We usually have union and then intersection and difference, but now we actually get a variety of things and I can't wait to show you because this is one of the coolest updates and I believe a game changer in 3D modeling. So let's start off with a cube. And I'm going to bevel, Control B. I'm going to increase my segments here and reduce my fraction just a little bit so it doesn't look so... Let's go to 0.4. And I am going to turn on symmetry. I'm going to insert a couple of edges. Let's double click here and choose multi-edge loop. Let's increase our segments to 4. Going to double click my edges here and just kind of scoot them to the left. There we are. And then I'm going to grab some faces and just lightly extrude. This is going to just get me started on my crate. I'm going to build a sci-fi crate using this new tool. So let's delete the history, feature transformations, all that jazz. And I'm going to call this my sci-fi. I'm just going to say 1. All right, so very quickly, I can actually get this to look like a sci-fi crate. So let's go ahead and start off with a cube. And usually what we do is, well, I'm gonna just kind of shape it here and place it in here. And let me go ahead and increase my subdivisions just a little bit. Like that. So what we can do is select the object, then select the mesh, and then we can go to Booleans. And usually what we can choose is, let's say, difference A to B. So you can see that because I chose A to B, it actually crops the whole crate disappears versus here. But the reality is I want the other way around. So usually what you have to do is go to undo and then, try again. But we now have this new fancy tab called, as you can see over here to the right, we have Poly Boolean 1. We have our cube, oops, and then we have our sci-fi crate. Now you'll also notice that we have our sci-fi crate, our poly, our cube, but we also have a new surface. This new surface is what's left behind. So we want to go to the tab called Poly Boolean, and here we can actually say, well, you'll see that you have the cube here, then we have that. So we can kind of flip them, and you'll notice that right away, it actually made this one the dominant one, and this is the one that actually gets cut. Another way you could do, and it actually does a pretty good job with the cut, which I love. Another cool thing about this feature is that if you click here, you can actually still decide if you change your mind, you can actually change it. So for example, you're like, oh, I actually wanted union, so now they are united. So you can see now that they're actually, one. You can also change it. So let's say you wanted to go back to that, or you can say intersection. So that's another piece there. And we have slice and a bunch of other things, which I'm going to show you guys later. But let's go ahead and choose difference. Now, what's really fantastic about this is that this is actually interactive. So that means that I can actually make this smaller and larger and actually move it around further in or further out, and it's interactive. So it's really valuable because I get to just kind of work on the fly, where before, if I made a mistake, I have to undo and then fix it and then do, and so on and so forth. Other options that we have here is that if you don't want the cube to disappear, you can choose shaded. You can also choose bounding box, or you can use X-ray. And then finally, you can choose hidden, so you don't have to see it. Pretty neat. Pretty amazing. Like I said, game changer. Not only that, but wait, there's more. Another thing we can do is actually start adding even more pieces to it. So let's say, for example, I wanted to add little holes here. So I'm going to grab a cylinder. And let's say I want to just kind of put little holes here. And I do want to keep my polygon relatively low. So let me just go in and change this to maybe a 10. It doesn't have to be this big either. I think. Doesn't really matter. Let me go ahead and duplicate this. And duplicate this as well and flip it to the other side. All right. Now, what you can do is just select one by one and start doing Booleans. However, Maya 23 makes this way easier. I can do is actually pin it, which you can see over here to the right. So even if I click on something else, it does, the Boolean tab keeps it there. If you want to let go, you just deselect the pin and then you grab the shape nodes. So once again, I can grab my new geometry, go to Poly Boolean, pin it, and then what I can do is actually grab my cylinders and middle mouse and drag it. And just like that, they are now in the Boolean list, just like that. And there's more. You can select these guys and change them right away. So you can change them to difference. I can change this to wireframe, and immediately I have little holes. So very fast, very efficient. And again, these are still live, so I can change them as I wish. Now, I don't know if you realize how helpful this is. I can actually make a variety of different types of sci-fi crates using Booleans. So I'll demonstrate in a second. One last thing I wanted to do is that I can create like a little gear, for example. Let me unpin this and go to my polysphere and reduce this. I'm going to create like it's going to look like a bolt. Yep. There it is. I'm going to place it in here. You can press the number 3 if you want to see the smooth version, but let's go ahead and duplicate this, Control D, and I'm going to place it over here. So what's neat about this is that I can actually parent this piece of geometry. This is going to be my boat. And I can parent it to the cylinder. So if I go ahead and grab this and middle mouse and drag it to the cylinder, wherever I drag the cylinder, the bolt will go with it. Now it does slow things down, so just keep that in mind, but it's actually very efficient because now what I can do is, let me see which is this one. Whoop. I can grab my crate. I can grab my bolts. It's gonna be my bolt 2, I guess. Sorry, I need to label things. And I can go ahead and duplicate it. Control D. Here's one version. Let me just go ahead and delete the history, freeze the transformation. And then let me say that I want to change things around, and I feel like this needs to be maybe more like 90 degrees. And I'm going to just plunge it in here. Maybe I'm going to grab these. These don't have bolts, but again, this is more like an example. I'm going to just make these come closer. I can go ahead and use the Boolean, and so I can turn off the cylinder. I can hide the bolt, and I can take this one as well, which is number 3, and I can go in and turn that one off. And obviously I would have a bolt here, but very quickly, I can go ahead and grab this new surface, duplicate that one, and move it aside. And more changes. So let me go back to, I mean, you can just, hopefully you guys can see the benefit of this. Let me just grab this and maybe just rotate it 90 degrees. And maybe I'll just put it in here. Bring it out a little bit. And I probably should have done the same for this one, but that's okay. I'll just go ahead and do the same. And what's great about this is that this is actually live. So that means that I can actually manipulate these objects on the fly and it will read it. So it's extremely powerful. I'm just in love with this. So let's duplicate that one. And now I have a whole set of different looking objects. Now let's see if you want to smooth this one. Right? So if you smooth it, it will actually pick that smooth up. So you're not limited with the polygon that you're using. You can actually go ahead and smooth it and it will actually pick it up. Not only that, you can pick this up, select this, no longer a cube, but you can right click on it and say use smooth mesh output, and then it will even be smoother still. So pretty sweet. It's amazing. Let me go ahead and grab all of this, duplicate it again, Control D, and now I have a bunch of crates. Very fast with the original. So that is the power of Booleans, especially with this new list here. Pretty amazing. All right, I want to make this a little bit more complex. So let me delete the history, freeze the transformations, all that jazz. And I can continue working on this. So let me create another cylinder. All right, so in this portion of the tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and just fast forward and just explain what I'm doing. So very similar to the previous steps, I'm just creating cylinders, and then I'm going to place them and also lower the topology so it's not that high. Then after that, I'm going to be duplicating the bolts and making sure that they are placed in the correct space. But first, let's go ahead and create another cube to kind of give me I'm going to cut the corner of that sci-fi crate, click on the Boolean tab, and adding the pieces and making sure that they are wireframe, that they are also difference. And you can see that now I have very quickly again space for the bolts. Now I'm adding a little bit more details by creating another cube. I'm going to be duplicating those cubes, and I just want a little bit of detail at the front of my sci-fi crate just to kind of enhance the design. I'm going to make a very simple design of this object, but again, very quickly I can take those cubes, add it into the list, and now I have a sci-fi crate. I can go further into the details, but I'm going to go ahead and move on. But hopefully you can see how powerful this is. I can create a variety of sci-fi crates very quickly with Booleans. Now I decided to hide the other crates that I've made because I'm going to be focusing on this particular crate. And here I am just making sure that every single one of those nooks has a little bolt in it so that I can start shading it, which is going to be the next part of this video tutorial, is to use the new updated shaders in Maya. Okay, so this is our sci-fi crate and we can now start shading it. So it turns out that usually what I do is right click and assign a new material. And what I usually do is go to Arnold and grab the AI standard surface shader. However, Maya now has a standard surface shader as well, and it's connected to Maya, not to the Arnold shader. So it's right here. It's called standard surface. And if I click here, just like in regular Arnold, if there's no light, nothing happens. However, the difference is that if I go to Maya software and render, it's going to show up. And the reason why this is great is because it doesn't matter what render engine I'm using, such as V-Ray or Redshift or whatever, this particular shader works for Maya alone, not just the Arnold shader. So let me demonstrate to you what I mean by that. If I'm going to duplicate this, move this aside and assign a new material and use the Arnold AI standard surface, and then render with Maya software, you're going to see that the Arnold AI standard surface doesn't render, but the regular standard surface does. Now, if you compare the two materials, so you can see here, and I'm just going to pull this off. So if you take a look at this one, this is the standard surface that I just created, and this is the AI standard surface. The attributes are all the same. So you can see that they have a base, they have a weight, they have a color, they have everything is basically the same. The major difference now is that you can actually use this regular standard surface, make it look like an Arnold shader, and it works on any type of render engine, which is amazing. I just created a dome, and which you guys can create an Arnold Lights physical sky. And basically on the left, we have our standard surface, and then we also have the Arnold AI standard surface. There is a little bit of difference when it comes to the highlight, but in general, the colors and everything are just about the same. Now, what's really great about this new standard surface is that in the past, it didn't have these presets, but now it does. So now I can go to presets, and I can choose a variety of things such as Chrome. And I'm going to do the same thing for this AI standard surface, which is Chrome as well. And let's see what happens. So this is what's amazing about this new shader is that this new standard shader is that it does have the same presets as the Arnold, but the difference is that this will render in other engines. Now I don't have another engine here with me, and Maya software cannot do reflections, but it's still pretty sweet. So let's try something a little simpler like plastic. Here we go, plastic. And I'll do the same thing for this one. And you can see that very quickly I can get very similar results using Maya standard versus the Arnold AI standard surface. So it's pretty neat. All right, so that being said, let me go ahead and just kind of mess around with this shading really fast, just using the standard shader. So let's go ahead and have a little fun with this. Let me assign in a new material. I'm going to choose the Maya standard surface shader. Make sure you don't get confused with the surface shader. This is just a standard surface. And let's go ahead and give it some chrome. And I'm going to rough it up a little bit. Let's grab some faces here. And let me see if I can get symmetry to work. Yay. Awesome. Assign a new material. Maya standard surface. Let's go back to plastic. But this time I'm going to change it to more of a white. And I might just hide this one for now. All right, let me start labeling things. So this is blue plastic. I think this is the white plastic. And I think it's too rough. So let me make it shinier. And I'm going to call this my chrome. I want it to be a little shinier. All right, it's looking pretty good. Let's move on. All right, in this part of the tutorial, I'm also going to just fast forward through it and just explain the process. So in this case, I'm going to be grabbing some edges of a circle and just extruding so that I can get some depth. And the purpose for that is because I am going to be selecting those outer faces and assigning a already existing material, which is going to be the plastic. Then I'm going to shift select the emissive map. So the emissive shader basically makes it look like it's glowing, and it just makes it look more sci-fi. After that, I'm creating a very simple cylinder and also assigning another material to it, which is going to be another preset, which is rubber. So assign existing material, grab the surface shader, presets, rubber. Simple, fast, and awesome. Might as well grab some other faces and assign the emissive material, which by confusing. So I'm going to go ahead and label, and then I can quickly assign my emissive material. And there we go, everybody. Very quickly, you can texture a sci-fi crate. Not only that, don't forget that we have a bunch of other sci-fi crates here as well. So let me go ahead and bring this in. And I'm not going to take the time to shade them, even though it would be relatively fast, but let me just go ahead and place them in the environment. So imagine if you were trying to create, just like a regular, like a scene or something, and you needed to diversify your environments very quickly. Well, using these tools, you can very quickly create a bunch of different types and make it look different, unique, and cool, fast. It would take a while for me to model something like this. Let's turn on the resolution gate here. All right, let's see what that looks like. And there we go. Very quickly, we can create a bunch of different types of sci-fi crates just using the Boolean function. Really neat. All right, let me show you some other cool stuff. So we talked about the different types of Booleans. Under mesh Boolean, we have all of these, but we really haven't talked about slice, hole, and these other ones, which I actually want to display. I did not model this. I found this in TurboSquid. So if you guys are interested, I'll just leave a link below so that you guys can download this object. But what I'm going to do is really quickly I'm going to break this and blow this door up. And I'm just going to make these wide enough so that it actually goes through the door. And, some of them are going to be big pieces. Some of them are going to be smaller pieces. I'm not going to spend too much time on this particular. And I'm just going to duplicate it, make it smaller. And just like before, what we're going to do is select one, select the other, and then we can go ahead and choose a Boolean function. Right, so this one is right now under difference, and wireframe. So I can select these other ones. Oh, let me go to Boolean, pin it, grab the other ones and middle mouse and drag them into here. Then select these and also change these to difference and to wireframe. Ooh, doesn't like this one. All right, let me see if I can create another piece. Make sure it goes through it. So another way you can do this is you can copy the tab, drag it over here, and then middle mouse and drag it here. And again, I can make a difference, and then I can do wire shaded. There we go. So I'm going to grab this one, duplicate it, and just move it aside. So this is going to be my the one that's busted. The other thing I can do is start flipping these. So I can turn some of them off. So for example, I just want to just grab that piece. So what I can do is grab the sphere and then choose the other method, intersection. And then I can grab this one, duplicate it, and flip it to the other side. So I can quickly make some changes here. So I can do the same thing for this one, change this back to difference. Then I can go in and make this an intersection. I can grab that one, duplicate it, bring it over here, and do the same thing to the other piece. So that's intersection. The other options that we have include slice. So let me change this back to here. And let's grab the sphere. So if we want, we can actually choose slice. And what it will do, it actually will change the geometry and add a slice to it. So if you need to, you can actually grab this and, you know, do whatever you need to do with it. It also has hole. So we'll actually, instead of creating, if you look at here, you'll notice that it actually adds geometry in here to try to make sure that there is no hole. Well, in this case, it does have a hole. So if you have, let's say, a vase and you want to make sure there's, you know, it's empty on the inside, you can use hole. Cutout is the same thing. It's basically the cutout of it, and it has a hole in the inside. So it's basically empty. So instead of being a solid piece like this wall, it's going to be empty. All right, so why am I showing this? Why is this important? Well, this is really a great way to create a destructible wall or anything that you want to destruct. So sometimes when you're working in the industry, they're going to specifically ask you to shatter something. So you have one piece here, and then you have a bunch of pieces shattered. And some companies are specific about how they want their objects to shatter. So with that, you have very quickly, you can create your pieces and make it destructible. So what does that mean? Well, let me show you. All right, so here's my destructible gate. Under effects, you guys can use something called bullet, and this is going to be my active rigid body. So all of these pieces will become active. And you also have here a solver, which you can't see, but that's going to be that's where your gravity and stuff like that is. And I'm going to turn on the ground plane. So when you rewind and play, these things will actually just kind of shatter. So how it works is that you can tell it to start a little bit later. So let's say the start time will be about 10 frames. So then I can press, and then it will shatter. So if you're clever enough, you can go in and play with the visibility. So right now my visibility should be on until frame 10. So I'm going to key selected here. Actually, key selected in 9, and then in 10, turn it off. So I have a whole one, and then the shatter would happen. And then these guys would be the opposite. They would be on at 10. So key selected, and then off at 9. Key selected. So let me do that for all of them. So let me see if I can do them all at once. Boink. So it will be 10, they're on. Visibility, right click, key selected, and then off. Key selected. So the way it works is that you see a full gate here, and then when it's going to look like it's shattered. Now, I'm not going to go into the bullet physics and things like that because that's a whole separate tutorial, but just to show you guys that you can quickly create destructibles using Booleans really fast, really cool. So boom, pretty neat. So if I select this one, the original gate, you'll notice that it disappears, pink, and gets replaced by the broken one. All right, so that's an example of more Booleans. Again, this is very powerful. I am actually really impressed, whoopsie, with the Booleans. Go over here. There you go, to my shattered pieces. And you can see how powerful it is. You can create some really great stuff with this, and you can create sci-fi crates. You can create just about anything, diversify it, and really, really fast. You can also see that we have the standard shader now has all the presets as in the Arnold AI standard surface shader. So that means that you can get all the great shading information from Arnold and bring it into any render engine, which is awesome. Maya 2023 is also really fast. It can handle a lot more geometry, and you can also control the way your model appears with the wireframe shaded. So again, this is a really impressive update on Maya 2023. I hope you guys enjoyed this video tutorial, and I hope you guys check out Maya 2023 when it comes out. I think it's going to be a game changer. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you again, Autodesk, for sponsoring this video. Can't wait to see what else you guys are going to come up with. If you found this video helpful and you learned a thing or two, which by the way, you might have learned a thing or two since this is brand new for Maya 2023, please like and subscribe. That would be amazing. That is your message to me, letting me know that you like these type of videos and that you want to see more. Also, take a look at academicphoenixplus.com, where you can download free models, free trainings, and so much more. So take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. And since you're there, take a look at my e-courses. I provide some in-depth modeling, texturing, UV mapping e-courses, which you can actually purchase at academicphoenixplus.com. That is another way you can support me. That would be fantastic. Please tag me in your social media once you download Maya 2023. I would love to see the stuff that you produce with Booleans and all the cool new techniques that Maya provides for us. So please tag me. I'm in Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Would love to see your work. Again, thank you so much for watching and spending the time with me. Keep creating, and I will see you next time.